Okay, Ambrose, I've got a quick question actually. You spoke about marketing, and I'm just interested as to what are some of the most innovative marketing strategies you've used. The story about Paul Ince on holiday comes to mind immediately, but any others you've got would be interesting to hear about as well.
I'll try and be quick. Are there any West Ham supporters in this room? There's always one. Paul Ince, and again, Phil was a player of your era, or certainly somebody with the playing generation above him. I first met Paul Ince through a footballer called Tony Gow, and Nigel told me that his family knew this family. That was useful for later on. But Paul was a very arrogant, very, very arrogant lad, not with a chip on his shoulder. The whole chip shop, you know, was on there. But cursory investigation, he never had a father figure, never ever seen his dad. His mum spent time here and time in Switzerland. But basically he was brought up by the former West Ham manager, a guy called John Lyle. Anyway, so this guy asked me, Tony Gow, Ambrose, why don't you know, he's a bit of a, you know, he's got a short fuse, why don't you talk to him? So at this time I'm flying. Trust me, I am, even if I look in the mirror and say it, I was flying. And so I said to him, and this was a kid who had about 8 first-team games. So I said, Paul, I'd like to, my name's Ambrose. And he said, yeah, I know you are. I said, I'd like to represent you. And he went, what do I want, what, my agent? I said, yeah. He said, what do I need an agent for? I thought, you know, you flash so-and-so. He had a Ford Escort outside. I don't want to put it on, but and it had a tear in the roof, and he put this glue on it. So like, it wasn't exactly big time. So I said, listen, anyway, here is my card. If you should ever think you need an agent. He went, well, I'll take it anyway, but I won't. Anyway, about 7, 8 months later, I got a phone call. Hello, it's Paul Ince. I've decided that I've just signed a 4-year contract, and you can be my agent. I said, well, that's really modest of you. You know, what do I want to be your agent for? He went, listen, let's stop playing games. I've got to get an agent, and the only reason I'm phoning you is because you're like one of the brothers, and it stops everybody else asking me. So that's it. Do you want to be my agent or not? I said, all right, okay, I'll be your agent. Fine. Anyway, it went from there. About 8 months later, 9 months later, I got a phone call. I couldn't understand what the person was saying. He says, slow down, speak. Anyway, it was Paul Ince, and I'm not ashamed to say, nor would he be. He was crying. You know, get me out of here, get me. I said, yes, slow down. What's the problem? He said, they've sacked Liley. Liley was the abbreviation of John Lyle, who was their manager. I left school to play football at West Ham. West Ham don't sack managers, they move them upstairs. So I said, look, give us his number and I'll phone him. He put the phone down, I phoned John Lyle. He said, Ambrose, it's true. I said, you know, if there's anything I can do, let me know. So I phoned Paul back. He said, look, you know, you can do something. You know, speak to someone, tell them to just give the job back. It was like, you know, this club was as near to the British National Party as it was possible to get, and I'm going to go and get them to change their mind. It wasn't happening. So I said, listen, Paul, I don't think it's going to happen. What do you want to do? He said, I want to play for Man United. I didn't even know that you dial 161 as it was then. Now it's 016. I never had a clue. Who did I know in Manchester? You know, marketing again. What did I know? Everything I had 1 foot tied on the post, and I was kicking everything in front of me. Thank you very much, and picking it up. So I thought, I took a chance. So I went through director of inquiries. Unbelievable. Can you get me Manchester United? Da da da. And I knew that their chairman, Martin Edwards, his father was a boxing promoter in Manchester. He was also the chairman of Manchester United. Not then, it died. So I thought, I'll phone Martin Edwards up. So I got through to his secretary. Hi, my name's Ambrose Mendy. You may remember, she said, I know who you are. you know, you're with Nigel Benn. I said, yeah, that's right. She said, okay, I had to book our chairman tickets for a fight. So I said, oh, okay, can I speak to him? She said, yeah, of course. So I spoke, he went through, put me through. He said, you'll have to speak to the manager, Alex Ferguson. So I phoned Alex Ferguson. You know, it's, I thought, you know, what is this man talking about? So I said, look, can you just slow down a minute? My name is Ambrose Mendy. I represent Paul Ince, our great footballer. First words he ever said to me. I said, John Lyle has been sacked. He said, you're lying. I said, he's been sacked, you know. So he said he was going to look on teletext. Okay? So when we talk about social media today, these are all the lessons. He's going to look on teletext. It took about 2 hours for this to come on teletext. He phoned back, you're right. I said, yeah. He said, oh, I like the lad, you know, da-da-da-da. I said, okay, look, John Lyle told me you want to sign him. Is that correct? Is that true? He said, yeah. I said, okay, he wants to play for you, and I give you my word, whatever you read in a newspaper over the next few days, it's lies. It is lies. He is only going to come to you. So expect all others to say da-da-da. Anyway, your word is your bond. Uberem fidus is my bad interpretation of the Latin for utmost good faith. You give your word. It's still, in today's age, so important. So I did. Anyway, things moved on. We got to the point where Paul was supposed to sign for West Ham, and it was inevitable. It was going to, in about 2 weeks, the move was on. Incredibly, it got delayed. West Ham sacked their manager, appointed another manager, a guy called Lou Macari, who thought he was a Scottish gangster, and I quickly reminded him that we were actually in London, so whatever's whatever. And he halted the deal, said he wanted to keep Paul. Paul agreed to have a picture. He wanted to go to Malta. I think Malta was about £29.95 for a week. So it's not like he was going to the Seychelles or the Maldives or whatever. So I said, look, drop the holiday. No, I want to go. I said, okay, we'll get a picture taken in the shirt before you go. And then we can just release that to the media. Anyway, he went away. The deal never happened whilst he was away. He came back, and now the deal is going to be done. And I will bore you, because it's important to get pictures in your mind what happened. And this gives you some idea. I drove to a motorway cafe with Paul and Henry Brandman, who was now also his solicitor. And we met the late Sir Matt Busby, the former manager of Manchester United, and Alex Ferguson, and Maurice Watkin, the lawyer for Manchester United. And this was on the day when I'd been trying to persuade Alex Ferguson, because this was a couple of months ago, you must sign this kid Ian Wright. You must sign him. I'd been introduced to Ian Wright by David Rocastle. You must sign him. I represented a lad called Danny Wallace, who used to play for Southampton and England. Basically, after Man United, he went to Birmingham. Sadly, he was stricken with an illness, MS. But he was a flying machine, great player. But I knew Ian Wright would be a better player. Anyway, I kept going on. He went, no, my reports, scouting reports, familiar terms, that they say he's a loose cannon, da-da-da-da. Anyway, leaving that where it was, we now assemble to do this deal. Whilst we're sitting in this hotel, somebody came in and said they got a news flash, and it was that Liverpool had beaten Crystal Palace 9-1. So my position, bravo and da-da-da-da, was weakened considerably, because that was testimony to a player that I'm trying to get them to sign. So we said, okay, let's get on with Paul. We agreed the terms and everything. And the next day, Manchester United decided we're going to break the transfer record twice. Gary Pallister, who became a very stoic defender for them, and then Paul Ince. Anyway, we sat in the room, as people do. They've got this custom where you have to, I don't drink, but where they have wine, and they're all celebrating everything else. And the door opened, a guy burst in there, commercial manager, Danny McGregor, and he said, "Boss, can I have a word with you?" And Alex Ferguson went out. About 5 minutes later, the door opened, they asked me to come out. So I saw Ferguson, his jaw was on here. I said, "Is there a problem?" He said, "There's a big problem, the deal's off. You know, Paul Ince has got a serious groin problem." I said, "What are you talking about? How?" He said, "Look, you know, he's down there. I go into a room, Claire, Paul's wife now, is in bits, in pieces, but trying to console him. So I called him out. I said, "Listen, what's happened?" I won't quote him verbatim, I'll just tell you what happened. A guy walked into the room with him, Gary Pallister's missus and Paul's wife-to-be, and said, "Oh, all right, lads, you know, how are you feeling like that coming here?" "Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. You know, what's your previous experiences been like?" So Gary Pallister, who comparatively to Paul's motor mouth, he was mute, said, "Yeah, you know, have you ever had any injuries or anything?" No, I've never been injured in my life, ever, since I was 5. Never been injured." "What about you, Paul? You ever been injured?" "Oh, what? Oh, I am injury. You know, done this, done that, blah, blah, blah." "Oh, Claire, what about that one? What about when I broke my toe, fractured my toe?" And he said, "Oh, what did you do then?" He said, "You know, it's the end of the season, there's only 2 games left, so just let it ease back and everything else, and report it for pre-season, sweet. You know, da-da-da." And Claire said, "Yeah, and what about, you know, the thing where you couldn't," he said, "Oh, my grind, that was shocking, absolutely unbelievable." This guy was from Lloyd's of London. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we know what happened next. He said he's not. The deal was going to go off, but the deal was off. So I asked Ferguson, "Please, do me a favour. I gave you my loyalty in the first instance. You've never read Paul saying anything about going to another club. I need you to allow me to take him to see a specialist, because with the greatest respect to your physio, what does he know? You know, and this is life-changing." He said, "Okay." So we agreed that he would say talks were still ongoing. That meant 2 things. The first thing it meant was West Ham couldn't order their player to come back to them. Really, really important. And secondly, I had control of the situation. So I phoned my office, I said, "Listen, I don't care who you get somebody who is the #1 authority on pelvic region." We've moved now from groin to pelvis. Me, I changed it, because I thought, well, there can't be anything wrong with his pelvis. They're talking about a groin here. So we brought in this guy called Professor Molnier from France, and we put Paul in the Wellington Hospital in St John's Wood, booked all the beds in a private ward, all of them. I can't even talk to you about the cost here, but it was less than I was going to get from this deal. And Brendan Batson, who was then the head of the PFA, came down because I trusted him, and we wouldn't let anybody else in there. West Ham sent all these bruisers, these big gorillas. They had no chance, because believe you me, they are brothers who are serious. It's come in handy, especially my schoolmates. Anyway, so that they weren't getting in. So I was sitting in there waiting for this guy to come, and Paul's saying, "Am, do you think this is going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen?" Well, if you want change, take massive action. So everything in my life had conspired to bring me to that point. So what I decided to do was something that was so obvious and so blatant. Sometimes they're the things that work. So I thought, this professor wouldn't know Paul Ince if he was in a room of 2 people with a sign on his head. So I thought, you know what? I said to Paul, "Get out of bed." I got into the bed. This is 100% truth. I even have all the medical records and everything. I got into bed. They took me downstairs to this thing. This guy spent about an hour and a half fidgeting around everywhere, this, that and the other, blah, blah. Come back upstairs, bingo. Next day we had a press conference, the Mirror, the Sun, the Mail, the Telegraph, the Times, the Express, ITV, BBC, CBS, NBC, everybody is at this press conference, and I've got this little French man who can't speak 2 words of English, explaining the pelvis is perfect. For me, you know, for years, it's no problem. Yeah, you will have this, that, and the other. That's how Paul Ince joined Manchester United.
That's hilarious, that's hilarious. Alright, we've got about
I'm going to go outside.
15 minutes, we're going to try and sneak in